correct information here. We are live, I think, but let me see if my stream. I am. Yeah, whatever. That works. This is Dr. Mike Reed. There's people jumping on. I have the wrong freaking title up there, but whatever. It is what it is.
Hey man, I'll be Jason. Hey,
Dude, it's
it's all
been
good, but
one of those freaking days. Like, it's now that we're on, and I look like an ass because I had the wrong title on, but whatever. It is, dude. It was one of those days, like I just said before we came on live, that like I I don't ever question ultimately how this turns out because I do really not necessarily trust the plan, but I have a lot of faith that this is going to go correctly because so many people are waking up consciously, right? But
right, that's
then you
right.
have these
Yeah.
days where you're just freaking pissed. Like I am so tired of these elected officials, man. Like even the Dan Crenshaws of the world who now they got asked to speak at the Great Reset, one of their seminars.
So which side is he on? I
Dude,
mean,
good
you know,
question.
you look at the Mitt Romneys, which are obvious, and he needs to be swinging from a rope. But then you see some of these politicians like Graham today and Dan Crenshaw. I mean, you wonder like, are you people so weak that you're jumping ship? Like, don't you see where this is going? So they're going to be castrated by the public once Trump goes once everything goes red here. You're going to see this red wave coming in the next few weeks. So I don't know why they wouldn't just, stay on board with Trump at this point.
Dude, you know what? And we're going to talk about this tonight because Dr. Mike Reed, by the way, here, who is a frequenter on the show because I love his knowledge. He's one of the many people behind the scenes that I'm texting and messaging back and forth because he knows this world so well. And we're going to go through some information. This is going to be a deep show tonight. So, folks, if you cringe at secret society, planetary craziness, and all that stuff, then you have to pick if this is your show tonight. But, dude, I wonder because I'm looking at the PowerPoint here that you have up, which we'll go through in a minute. I really wonder if when these people are elected, which I now am a little concerned for all the new freshmen going into the House that are Republican who won, that you get in there and they just pull you into the secret society and you either have to freaking jump on board or you get tossed to the side because you were hoping the Crenshaws and the Gabbers of the world, you hope that some of these people had a spine and then this stuff happens. You really have to wonder how how long before you're in do they start like pulling at your strings to pull you among the elite ladder. You know what I mean?
Or get you caught in a honeypot, or some sort of sexual bribe, or pull up some of your past, and sort of that's the old CIA mafia techniques that they use. And now you work for us, or we're exposed to the world, right? And you'll never work again. So it makes you wonder, and that's why I think you and I mentioned having a short term in Congress, like 8 to 12 years versus lifetime, and that way you're going to work your butt off if you want to have that retirement at the end.
No, totally. And it's it's like yeah, I actually showed a commercial a couple months ago now of Dan Crenshaw put out actually a phenomenal commercial. I think you saw this with
Yeah.
like five other people who were potentially going to be brought into Congress. And then today, and the crazy part is he's bitching today about the president taking troops out of Afghanistan, saying that if we do this, we risk having another 9/11. Is Dan Crenshaw really that asleep that he doesn't know what happened?
Well, when they start talking about that and they don't realize really what Afghanistan or what the Gulf War was all about, that just tells you he's not awake. I mean, and what is he doing? You like to say, "Hey, Dan, open both eyes," but that's sort of playing on words. But but the bottom line comes down to if these guys really don't have a clue what's going on outside of the four walls of the United States, then what are you doing in Congress or being a senator? So I agree with you. He seems to be lost, and he's not just connected to really what's happening in the world.
Yeah, and it actually, and this drives, I want to get your opinion on this before we dive into the deep stuff. Is so I'll show some videos probably this week on some more Sidney Powell interviews where she was Newsmax and she started dropping the hammer more. But um, I really truly, and I talked to Robert David Steele this morning about this, and he pretty much agreed. Is I actually believe at this point you have to wipe Congress clean across the board. Like no one's safe. And trust me, I'm a big Rand Paul supporter. And I don't even mind people like Justin Amash. I don't love Justin, but I don't mind him. At least he's a constitutional mindset, or the Thomas Masseys of the world. But I don't know how you don't move forward from this train wreck without cleaning the table, especially with Sidney Powell now. I don't see, dude, you let me know. I don't see any way forward without, I don't see them, I don't think they can count the votes anymore. I don't think they can audit it correctly. I mean, Michigan just certified votes tonight that were fraudulent. I don't see a way forward without having the House and Senate pick the president and vice president and basically create a new republic next year.
Well, that's the third default, right? It's just, or second, and then you got Supreme Court. But if they're not going to flip the count and give Trump more than 270, then that's I think that's the default that you're going to have to go through. And right now, I think just listening to Sidney, there's enough evidence that they're going to have to take it to the courts of those states and get it flipped. If they can't, then you've got, like you said, you've got alternatives. But bottom line, there's so much evidence at this point. I mean, these guys were so sloppy in what they've done that any judge in his right mind who's not part of the deep state has got to say, hey, this was electoral fraud, and they've got to flip it for Trump.
100%. And actually, I just found before the show tonight, there's a Twitter feed. Apparently, one of the gentlemen from Newsmax, Greg, I don't remember his name. He's one of the hardcore guys. He used to be Fox. He flipped over. And he's basically now a Tucker Carlson mind of Newsmax. And he asked Sidney tonight about it. And Sidney Powell said she believes that the president has possibly over 80 million votes when this is actually all said and done.
Yeah, that's what they said tonight. So, that could put him up over 400 to like 410 to 138 for Biden, which is going to be the greatest landslide in U.S. history. So I think that's what we're going to see. But on the flip side, that has to happen by December 14th, right? So you got roughly about 4 weeks to get this done.
Dude, it's going fast. They don't have a lot of time. And I mean, being in business like I am, if you've ever had any kind of attorneys involved with something, whether it's contract, legal does not move super quickly. I mean, they milk the clock a little bit, and something like this, as important as it is, this is probably going to go right up to the deadline, I would assume.
I would assume because you look at Trump. I mean, how many text messages I'm asking for money, and Shereen and I give to him as much as we can. And a lot of other people are, but lawyers are expensive. They are not cheap. There's no such thing as a free lawyer, right? And it's going to cost a lot of money, but it has to be done for the future.
No, totally 100%. So let's dive into some fun stuff, because you and I have been studying this for quite a while too, which is, I mean, there's no real other way to say it, which is like Illuminati. It's this is the secret societies. This is the planet. Now, Dr. Reed is gonna give us some information he put together, and I'll show you the PowerPoint when we get to it. But I realized, and today I stumbled upon more, which went really deep, and I kind of had like this aha moment today where I was like, I wrestled with the idea that this is a massive intergalactic war. Now, I know it is, but you still got to wrap your mind around that, because that's not something we've been, we didn't grow up with that. This is more of late educating ourselves, just like you. But as I stumbled onto websites, which we'll show tonight, they have been covering this up for so long, but yet right out in front of our eyes. And if this is exposed going forward, if POTUS really is the person who helps expose this stuff, tell me what you think. People are going to be blown out of their mind because this is not anything that's been on their plate before.
Well, what did POTUS say? He said declassify everything, right? And I think what he's going to do is coming up to, and I think this is what the storm is going to be on the 20th, 21st of December. I think Horace Drew is right, and that at about 6 week, 7 week mark, where all of this stuff is going to come out, and it's going to be over by Christmas. That what's going to happen is there's a declassification of everything that's happening from the children, the dumbs, the sex trafficking, all the way up to what's happening with free energy, and possibly the ETs if they're willing to expose that connection. That's going to blow a lot of people. It's going to affect religion. It's going to affect the energy sector. I mean, this is going to just, like you said, just burn the whole system down, and we're going to be starting brand new. And that I don't think the majority of people are ready for, Jason. That's my biggest concern. You're gonna have people whose reality is going to be totally imploded, and you're going to have a lot of people who are going to lose their shit and taking drugs or whatever, or being in the hospital. But you and I are somewhat numb to it because we've been in this world for a long time, and the more we're into it, the more it starts to come together, and you're going, "Holy shit, this stuff is real. This is not a game anymore." And it's a great time to be alive, and I'm excited for the future for our kids and for our futures. But it's really like the sort of jail doors slowly being swung open, and we have help to really become free. And we are a prison planet. I'm convinced with that now. I saw a comment, I think it was yours, about the fluoride, and with the banking system, and with the taxation system, and with the GMO and the vaccines. When you start to put all this stuff together, you realize that you are a slave in a system.
No, 100%. And I will tell you, one of the ways that I know, because when we show some of this stuff tonight, people are gonna say, okay, well, I don't know if I can get my head wrapped around that. There's no way that's true, and especially if I go into the Orion lines tonight, which is a whole other level. But I'll tell you, when I look through, and I always look through this stuff when I'm feeling very like pretty inturbulated, like because some of this stuff can rock your world a little bit, even like it gets you a little upset, it gets you got to walk away. But when I start looking at this stuff, um it makes sense to me. The puzzle pieces come together, and I actually, not that I feel better about the dark world that it is, but I feel better in the fact that, like, okay, I'm on to truth again. I don't know if that's something you've experienced as well.
Yeah, and especially if you had any doubt or you question anything, like, when I talk about vaccines to, any patients or any friend, they look at you like you have two heads. Yeah, but my doctor says it's good for me. But do you know what's in a vaccine? Or, you pay your income tax. Do you know where it goes? No, the government tells me to pay, so I stand in line, I pay. That mask you're wearing, do you think that thing actually works against a virus that doesn't exist? Well, my government says, and you realize how brainwashed people are. And you're in a totally different ballpark than 99% of the population. So your certainty grows, your knowledge grows, and you go like, oh my gosh, like I'm not even, my feet aren't even touching the ground anymore, because you can see from a bird's eye view really what's happening all over. It really starts to come together.
Absolutely. So let's dive into this. How do you want me to present this? Because I will go at you, since this is your PowerPoint, but I have control of it. I will go at your narration, my friend.
Well, I wanted to, let's just pull up that first slide. I really want to talk about symbolism because, for those who are listening to us tonight, the symbolism really is, there's an old saying that symbolism will be their downfall. I'm going to also throw in there that software will be their downfall too. But when you look at symbolism, it's everywhere around you. If you understand that the Illuminati, the globalists, Jason, they have to show their symbolism in order to make things happen. I think that's part of their belief system. Is that correct?
Yep, totally.
Yeah. So when you look at some of the symbolism, there's a lot of things that you see. For example, JFK when he was killed, and Diana when she was assassinated. Those two have an eternal flame on their graves, and that eternal flame is an Illuminati symbol. It means we have you, and it's usually a warning for others as well. When you look at Statue of Liberty, she's holding a flame. That's an eternal flame. That was actually a Freemason gift from France to the United States during the immigration years, and it was an Illuminati symbol that says Europe still owns the United States. So even though it represents liberty, it's actually an Illuminati symbol. And you
That
see
is
that
correct.
in the Columbia pictures, like Columbia Studios in Hollywood, where the it's supposed to be Osiris holding the flame, and that goes back to Egyptian times. So you see the symbolism, and you start to see it everywhere, right? So, and it's really interesting. You start to see it in corporate America too. You see it in Hollywood. You see it in the energy sector, and you look at it, and you go, "Wow, this thing is massive," and all these companies are tied in. And this is where, over the last 3 years, they've actually removed, I can't remember if it's 1,200 or 12,000, but a lot of CEOs have been replaced. And these were the guys that basically got approached and said, "Hey, we got you caught. We know everything. We got everything in the NSA. You're either going to step down and we're going to put somebody in who's a good guy, or you're going to go to prison and lose millions of dollars." So they basically retired a lot of these CEOs.
Totally. Yeah. I got a picture up of Chet, and the interesting thing about this is I did a little extra study on this, and on his right pec down near like the nipple area, he has three stars there, like three almost like star looking type objects.
Yeah.
Those are the pyramids, dude.
Right. And that's symbolic of Orion, the Orion lines
Yep.
of pyramid systems we see around the world, from the Mayans to the one that's in Malaysia. I'm trying to remember the name of it. Monongol, I think it's called. And, this is what we see. If you even take a topographical look at 9/11, the buildings, they're
Yep.
actually laid out in Orion lines as well.
Yep.
So, yeah, and I can't see that PowerPoint, Jason, but I
Okay.
can, yeah, so I
Okay,
don't know if
so
you
I'm gonna also
can hear it.
show here um 9/11 Orion lines real quick. You can keep I'll let you keep talking. I don't want to interrupt you, but I wanted to show them what that also looks like, because there you go. The Giza
Right.
pyramids, World Trade Center, Orion's belt, all were aligned.
Right. So you see this worldwide, and that's symbolic. What's really interesting is not only is that within Orion's line, but when you look at the new Freedom Center, and when I was there, I was amazed. You could, if you go to the bottom of it, you look up, you'll actually see it's a double pyramid. So whichever side you're facing, it's a triangle coming down and one going up, and it's like, damn. Not only did they take out the buildings, but they actually rebuilt it in a double pyramid system that says, "Hey, we're still in control." So you see that symbolism around the world. When you get them wearing it like that, I mean, how stupid can you be, right? Just like you're walking billboard.
Totally.
So
Yeah, and so I had the pyramid up, and then the back of the dollar bill. You still there?
yeah,
Okay, good.
so a lot of that is symbolism, right? So you see a lot of that symbolism with regards to, like, 13 is a Freemason symbol, and Illuminati symbol. We see the 13 arrows, and 13 shafts of wheat, 13 stars for the first 13 colonies. And this goes way back when you look at colonial America and how that symbolism is there in everything. And what's really cool is, if you take, I think it's a special light you see on the next slide. Take a look at that next one. You've probably seen this, right?
Yes.
So, there was a genius that actually put this together. This just wasn't someone that went to a mint and printed, the dollar bill. There was a lot of thought that went behind this, and somebody who was quite a genius at putting this together.
Right. No, I totally. It's everything about it. And we'll go. So, folks, if you're watching this, I'm kind of actually taking you kind of up a slope of, we're starting off conspiracy symbolism 101, and then we're gonna go up to like college level, master's level, PhD level towards the end of this. So go to your comfort level. And if you get to a point where you're like, okay, I can't do that anymore, bounce off. We understand fully, because not everyone can handle this. And by the end, I will tell you, by the end, it's pretty hardcore.
So I just saw Tammy Hicks. I'm just looking at my other computer here. She said, "You can't ignore this stuff." And you really can't,
No.
because when you start to put all the stuff together, it really starts to make sense, and you realize that part of what the global satanic global elite are worshiping is really not a god, but some sort of alien entity that have given them the technology, given them the upper edge above humanity, above you and I, in exchange for human food, and that's basically what this is all about.
Totally. And then I have so I have the picture up in the PowerPoint of the phallic symbol at the Vatican, but also I believe it's in Seattle, the baseball field with the is it the Space Needle next to it?
Yeah, that's Toronto, and
Okay,
that's
it's Toronto.
yeah, CN Tower and Sky Dome. And what's really interesting is that there's a strong sexual connotation to the Illuminati. And if you look at a lot of these parts, a lot of these space needles worldwide, you see the Space Needle, which is the obelisk, which represents the penis of Set, I think it was.
Yep.
Yeah, of Set, and that's an Illuminati symbol. And beside it is, of course, the vagina, so male, female energy and control. And they even made, the roof of the CN Towers that opened and closes, and that was a big joke when it was first built years and years ago. So when you start looking worldwide, what's really interesting is I've been to the Vatican, and
Yep.
I had a tour guide. He took me around, Jason, and at the very base of the obelisks, they have stone elephants that hold up the obelisk. And I knew what it was for. I wanted to see, and he just totally ignored me when I asked him. But
Right.
it's a symbol that can't touch a religious ground. So they actually elevate it. It's a pagan symbol. That's what we're looking for. That can't touch a religious ground. So they actually elevate it with an elephant, and that stands, I believe, for fertility. But it was really interesting. You see these, and they have 13 of these within the Vatican. 13. So there's that number again that we see. Right.
Totally, totally. I'm showing the Statue of Liberty, and then I'm going down to the Standard Oil Eternal Flame, which is also part of this whole thing.
Right. So you're going to see the eternal flame, and often you'll see the two graves beside that, and that's Diana and JFK when they were killed, and that's just an Illuminati symbol. It burns. It's basically says we gotcha. We're owned by you. So there's a lot of symbolism from the double pyramids to the flames to the numbers that you see consistently 13, 33. So, and you start to look at a lot of these logos for these companies. You can turn it sideways, you can flip it, and yeah, I get it. Some people say like, okay, I'm looking at the Taco Bell logo and I don't see the 666 in there, and I get it.
Right.
So, and you can sort of, make this up, but it's a lot of these symbols of companies that have been around for quite a long time. And you look at Standard Oil, who did that belong to? That belonged to, I believe it was the Rockefellers. Yeah, right. So, and they're part of the Trilateral Commission and Center of Foreign Relations. So they go way back. Now, this is kind of interesting because, I looked at the Alfa Romeo. I didn't see this.
I didn't know that either. I was just going to say that. Yeah. I didn't realize it was eating a person.
Yeah, so there's a snake eating a child, right?
Yep.
So, and it's like, why would you put a symbol like that on a car logo? It doesn't make sense to me. But you start to really start putting this together and you go, damn, it's like there's a lot of these corporations that are actually tied into this. And this is how this works. They feed each other, right? And they have money, and they have their own banking system, and they scam it off of charities. They scam it off of money that's given through income tax. You and I have been paying for it for years, whether it goes to the City of London or the Vatican. And, we've been fleeced in the sense to the tune of over 200 trillion, I think it's at right now, Jason.
Yep.
And that's how these, I could never figure out how do you get a company that can build a building like that or build a corporation? Where's that starter money come from? It's like Facebook. Right. Where does that money come from? And you realize that it's the banking system that's used us to feed them the money in order to do all this sort of stuff.
Totally. And it's I'm on the picture now of the serpent's head, and I believe, is that the Vatican? Is that a Vatican theater?
Hall. Yeah. So when you look at this, it's like you can't be more obvious in your symbolism than creating a serpent. I think everybody can see the teeth in the eyes and the serpent's head, and then that lower right picture, it looks just like a snake.
Right.
And then you have the crucifixion of Jesus, which looks like something coming out of the gates of hell. I mean, it's just so bizarre and so weird that you realize, why the military intelligence is taking down the Vatican.
Right. No, totally. I'm gonna bounce you out real quick because your screen froze up. So
Uh,
just call right back and I'll bring you right back up, okay? So let him jump back in. No big deal. It happens. There you go.
all right, is that better?
Yeah, no worries. There you go.
Got some,
Oh,
you got
look
some
at you.
movement
Now
now.
oh, they
All right.
got you dancing. I like that. That's fantastic.
I would make sure we had some movement.
You actually
Versus,
you
I'm
came back
frozen.
better this time.
I'm frozen. My lips aren't even moving.
So let's dive back into this because I love your explanations are fantastic. Now next is the Chrome logo, which we know about.
Yeah, I think most people. Yeah, like you said, this is symbolism 101. So it's basically the simple stuff that we see, but if you go deeper and deeper, you start to see more of it. Um,
And it's
yeah,
everywhere, man. It is freaking
everywhere.
everywhere.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
It's and then CERN, like, I mean, pretty obvious.
Yeah, I listened to Jason Q on CERN and the CIA underwater bunkers and stuff. That's pretty deep stuff. I mean, and that wouldn't surprise me when you look at the nefarious actions of CERN and what they're doing, or CERN CIA, I mean, around the world and how they work with CERN and running everything.
Right.
So,
Totally. And we have Texaco. So this picture, this one's important. So you have the Texaco logo, obviously the pentagram, and then you have the pentagon down below. And give us a little background on this, and I'll let you take this, but I'll give like an upfront is America, the DC area, Washington DC is not part of the United States of America. It's a separate entity, just like London is a separate entity, and Rome, the Vatican, is a separate entity. They're not part of the actual country, just like this is not. And the interesting thing is the Washington Monument was built way after George Washington. And this was all put in way after the founding fathers, but essentially this is all literally the Bavarian Illuminati, Lucifer worshiping. That's what the Pentagon is. That's what the Washington Monument is. I mean, go into that.
so if you look at the pentagram here, it's symbolic of, and kind of turn it a bit, you'd actually see it a little bit better. It's symbolic of a goat of Moloch, and this is the goat that they use. It's one of the satanic gods that they use to sacrifice children to.
Right.
And do you remember the DC logo when it first came out? They actually had the Democratic logo when it first came out,
Yeah.
and it was the same symbolism. And you start to realize, and you hear this time and time again, that there's a large satanic cult within the Washington D.C. area. A lot of politicians worship Satan. You're going, holy shit, this stuff is deep. What's going on? And even the way they designed, Washington with the roads and things like that, Washington D.C. You start to see a lot of this pentagram, five-pointed star, and then there it is in things like the Texaco logo. And you start to see the star in a lot of other logos, corporate America as well.
Totally. And then we have Exxon, the double cross.
And that's the double cross represents the Knights Templar, and that's how far back it goes, which eventually became the Masons. So a lot of these are Mason controlled. And, when you look at the Masons, there's 33 levels, and it's mostly at the very top, because it's compartmentalized, and the guys in the bottom, which are really usually good people, and they're giving back, the Shriners and things like that. And I've got some friends who are Masons. They don't have a clue about really what's happening at the very top. And this is where, like George Bush Sr., he was a 33rd degree Mason, headed CIA. You start to see how that really starts to come together.
Totally. This is what the next one is one of my favorites. This next one is the reason I believe I actually believe this it's the Gmail logo. And I truly believe we were already in the New World Order, and we already had quote unquote part of the mark of the beast. And I believe that was the technology companies having all of our information. That's my personal belief. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, I just believe, like, I think the vaccine is the last piece of it, but I believe this was the buildup to. They have everything. They have all our data. They have everything. I mean,
Right.
this shows it.
Yeah, and this all goes back to the CIA, which basically collects all the data from Facebook and Twitter. They were trying to they had a Cruz was grilling Zuckerberg today, asking, "Hey, is Facebook talking to Twitter? Do your top people communicate what's going on?" He sort of gave a wishy-washy answer. Of course they do, because Facebook was actually started by his grandfather, and I believe his grandfather was Rockefeller, and basically it was funded by the CIA, and they started with 500 million to actually get this thing going. So all it has been is a data collection center, and you get to do a little social stuff on the inside. So this comes back to that's a Masonic apron that they wear. You see the Masons that wear that, and there is your Gmail logo right there. Kind of looks the same.
It looks, it is so blatant. Like, they didn't even try to not be obvious on this one. They just don't even give a shit. You know why? Because
That's why.
they know that people have no clue what the Mason apron looks like.
Mm-mm.
So they just went for it.
Yeah.
And I truly believe they were coming more and like they were basically going up a scale as well to the very end where they're blatant about it, because this is pretty freaking blatant.
And sometimes when you're blatant, it's like it's so obvious people won't believe it, right? It's like, yeah, right.
Right. And then we have McDonald's, which I didn't know the McDonald's one.
Well, there's another symbolism that's very little known. It's a double rainbow, and if you turn the McDonald's symbol on its side, it's the number 13 as well. So, and some of the colors that they use. The McDonald's symbol also represents the rising sun, and the rising sun, which you
Yes.
see in the Shell logo, is also symbolic. And that's you look at the food, the crap that McDonald's puts out to the kids, and how the potatoes are treated. And I saw a guy that did a study on the chicken McNuggets, and he had a electron microscope looking at it. He's like, "What is this? What is this? That's not food. It was just like garbage that was in these things." So that doesn't surprise me if this is sort of Illuminati restaurant as well.
Oh, totally. And God knows what is really in the meat. I'm not going to go into
Yeah,
that tonight, but there's a lot of speculation on that.
that's right.
As well as the other thing about this one is Ronald McDonald is the mascot, and what color shoes was Ronald
Red
McDonald wearing?
shoes, right. So people who don't know, the Red Shoe Club are those that go to these child offerings and wear the red shoes. So yeah, that's kind of scary.
Totally. And there's Shell, which is the rising sun. That's pretty blatantly obvious as well, if you know what that one means. Rising sun, aka
Right.
Lucifer. And then we have a cascade of other logos. Dude.
And when you start to look at this and you go, okay, I got a lesson from Mike and Jason tonight on symbolism one-on-one. You start to see these symbolism and you go, oh, there's a double pyramid, and there's another sunburst, and there is, and it just goes on, and you start to realize how these people have been scratching their back, how corporate America, how Hollywood, how the military, how the banking system, how pharmaceuticals, how all of these are one incestuous family, and they've been screwing over mankind. The all-seeing eye, the mountains, right? The pyramids. It's just scary when you look at this. You go, "Damn! Now I can see it. I couldn't see it before." Right?
No,
The,
totally.
the
And
swirl, Time Warner with the swirl. That's a pedophile symbolism
yep,
that they're using. So it's
dude,
crazy.
it's so it's so I laugh about it, not because of it's funny. It's just it's so over the top insane. And hey, I'm just like everybody else out there. I grew up not knowing what this. I didn't see this. I didn't get it. And then once you start going down these rabbit holes, which we've done for 10 plus years, decades, and then you go, oh my God, this was so. I mean, I remember what. I mean, I grew up spending the days at my grandparents' house for like quote unquote daycare, and I watched the $100,000 Pyramid Man. Like, that was a from a content standpoint, great show. I would have never guessed, obviously, that freaking what kind of ruse they had going on.
Yeah. Yeah, and how you've been brainwashed from a young age, right? To
Right.
think a certain way. So how did we break out of the matrix? Maybe we just kept an open mind and we had one foot in a different room.
Totally. It's literally incredible what they have been doing. And let me go back to this real quick because I want to. This will transition us into the Orion Lines website, which is going to be a breaking point for people. I'm going to tell you right now. There's going to be in a couple minutes here. There's going to be a splitting for many of you. Some of you are going to stay. Some of you are going to go. But the Monsters Inc. logo. So the Monsters Inc. logo is there's a special little thing with the Monsters Inc. logo because I've watched both movies and the movies are quote unquote entertaining, but what they're doing is they're actually exposing what they're doing in the movie because in the movie the monsters go into a door which is technically considered like another dimension, I guess you want to call it, because like they just have a random door that they go into and they enter into a kid's house. So they're going through a portal and then they're scaring the crap out of a kid, not to hurt them, quote unquote, but to take their energy. So they're taking the negative energy of a child as their energy source and they're bottling it.
How crazy is that?
Yeah.
And
That
they're bottling it.
they're
Like, can you
bot
say Can you say adrenochrome? And the symbolism is that to desensitize people? Is it to bring them into that world? Is it to sort of make them more of a liberal mindset? And you start to realize the brainwashing that happens even at a young age,
right.
right? Right through to your later years. So
No, totally. And it's like when I had that realization on the Monsters Inc. movie, I'm like, oh my god! Not only the logo, but the entire thing was a symbolism for what is really going on the planet. And now we're going to go into how this actually works, which I'm going to tell you right now, everybody. This is the cutting off period for many of you if you cannot handle going to the next level, because I'm about to show you partially how this planet actually works that connects to what we've just discussed. And for many of you, it is going to challenge everything you've ever imagined. This is the Orion Lines website. Now, the reason I'm saying this about the Orion Lines website is I have shown this before, but he updates it quite regularly. And it has been updated recently to essentially it's gonna blow some minds tonight because there's now symbolism in there. It shows you exactly how they did this. So I'm gonna jump over to the site. And Dr. Mike, have you been on the site lately?
oh yeah, like if you want to really sort of dive into this, you introduced me to the West Printer Papers. You introduced me to the Ryan Lines. So I've gone through a lot of this, and this really does connect. What's interesting is everybody's saying the same thing. Phil Schneider, Bill Cooper, some of the old timers that have been screaming the alarm about all of this for years. And it's not just these guys, it's the David Ikes. It's a lot of these people who have been trying to expose this, and they're all saying the same thing. It's all coming together. So there's not a deviation. It's consistent in the research. It's consistent what's actually happening. And for those of you who are listening, do your research. Start to go into and look up Bill Cooper and Phil Schneider. Go to Project Camelot. Start looking at some of the whistleblowers about Area 51. Do your research when you look at the Orion Lines, and you start to see how all of this comes together and how we've been here before. This is not man's first run at this. This is probably our third, if not more. And this every time we sort of increase our intellect, we get pushed back, we get cold. So
Right. Now, they're called the Nazca lines. He's renamed them to the Orion lines because of, we're
sorry,
going to
Matt.
show you a source. What do you know about the Black Sun?
Well, that's supposed to be symbolic of Satan, of Saturn. and you see this as a symbol of Illuminati, and you see it in different areas throughout the world. You see it. I think it's in New York. There's one in CERN. There's one in Rome. You have these black boxes, which are another Illuminati symbol, and it's supposed to be related to Saturn. So there's something going on with one of the moons of Saturn, which is supposed to be a base as well.
Yes. Now, remember back to what I just said about Monsters Inc. and what they were trying to portray in the message, which was basically they were saying that they scared kids for the energy, but in reality, this is what they're really doing is, yes, below Earth, below America, and right here, there's actually a map of the southwest of the U.S. You have Texas down here, New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, California, and you actually have the DUMBs. And I'm going to tell you, there's not just military and kids down there. There's actually, like, these are lying or hiding below our Earth. And yes, our government and quote unquote the bankers in the top of the pyramid have been exchanging humans for technology and a whole bunch of other stuff. And then there's Pizzagate. Now the good thing is, my understanding is, as I've read this site, this is all tied to Q. Have you read that part as well?
Yeah.
And what did you get from that?
They were talking about how the feeder system with the Saudi family, with the Rothschilds, with all the money that's been fed for all these organizations, and basically the military that's been in there, that's actually taken out all the DUMBs. So for those of you who've been following this the last few months, the DUMBs stand for the Deep Underground Military Bases. These have been constructed over the last 50 years. They're all connected. They have high-speed rail systems to move children, the sex trafficking, which I think POTUS will expose, which is worldwide, the Caribbean, all the military bases, 150 military bases. And this is bigger than the cocaine trade. I mean, they ship children around the world. They have the sacrifices, hence Epstein Island, which is going to be exposed. But with regards to these DUMBs, the military went in there. And understand that a lot of what you're seeing right now is already done. So you're really just watching a movie. And there are good patriots in the United States that love the freedom, that don't want us. They know that the end game is to basically create slaves out of all of us or use us as fodder or whatever it might be. But they have organized militaries, not just the United States, but around the world, and they're closing this system down. Right. But you can't tell people that. And the whole idea is you have to show them. So this election was really a sting operation to expose to the people really what's going on. It will go red, and then they're going to slowly expose this stuff. And this is the stuff I believe which will be the storm. I think it's going to shock a lot of people, but they're basically freeing a lot of children who are in cages, been used for sex trade and adrenochrome. There's a lot of genetic experimentations that they've discovered in these areas as well. And a lot of military men have actually died going in there. So there's been guys that sacrificed their lives so they can free all these children. And that's what's going to be exposed. Right. And I think once you expose the children, that will make any person sort of understand really what's going on.
No, 100%. And there's a picture here of Behold the Pale Horse, William Cooper, which I've showed people a million times. And I always tell people, if you want to start off with a book, go to Behold the Pale Horse by William Cooper, because it tells you what is going on, but it's also, he takes you from the 101 level up. And in here, he literally has a paragraph: the government encouraged the manufacture and importation of military firearms for the criminals to use. This is intended to foster a feeling of insecurity, which would lead the American people to voluntarily disarm themselves by passing laws against firearms, using drugs and hypnosis on mental patients in a process called Orion. The CIA inculcated a desire in these people to open fire in schoolyards and thus inflame the anti-gun lobby. This plan is well underway and so far is working perfectly. The middle class is begging the government to do away with the Second Amendment. And part of the Second Amendment doing away with was to make it wide open for us when Hillary supposedly was going to take over, to basically sweep us for the next harvest, and we wouldn't be able to defend ourselves.
Yeah, and to put people in the FEMA camps, just like the concentration camps in World War II. And yeah, and thank God POTUS says he'll never ever give up that Second Amendment. I think that's important. Everybody who's listening, you have to be armed. You have to have lots of ammo. You have to be willing to fight. And if shit does hit the fan on this sort of stuff, you have to be willing to use those weapons, because if you don't defend yourself, and history has shown us that any government that takes the weapons usually abuses its people.
No, 100%. And I have a picture here of the Capitol building with the UFOs behind them, and it says aliens and UFOs are real. I want to make a clarifying statement right now, because there is a vast populace out there who believes that it's demons, all aliens are bad, it's fallen angels. That is not what the research shows. And actually, they've taken now the documented research, lots of archaeological sites uncovered, and they've actually matched this with theologians to the biblical scripts. And there are there are benevolent, and there are malevolent ETs. There are good and there are bad. This is a galactic battle, but a lot of people just think, oh well, all aliens and all ETs are bad. It's just bad beings. That's not true. It's actually a battle.
Yeah. And I think you're going to have disclosure. This is why we see a lot of soft disclosure with, like the Tic Tac videos and the Nimitz experience and things like that. So that's soft disclosure so that people aren't shocked. And I think you're going to see disclosure by the spring, summer of 2021.
Yeah, and it's actually interesting because one of the things he updated in here was he called the Egyptian king Akhenaten as well as Queen Nefertiti, and this has been pieced together on Twitter by Bina. Now, I don't agree with everything Bina says, but he has connected this in the fact that Obama is basically King Akhenaten, and quote unquote Michael/Michelle is Queen Nefertiti, and they are being used as quote unquote the Antichrist. Interesting.
Yeah, yeah, and I don't know enough about that to really comment, Jason, but I think you're going to see that Obama is more like the Manchurian candidate that actually has infiltrated the U.S. government. I think that's going to be a big shock for most people.
Right. And then we dive back down here in the Nazca lines. There's a couple things I want to get down to show people where they've actually outlined these. And these are outlined. These are locations on planet Earth, and they're lined up with the star system, with the planets, with the different star systems where other civilizations are coming from. And as we come down here, like they line this all up. I mean, and some of these names people have never heard of before, but the reticuli, Zeta Reticuli, 1 and 2, and then you have the sun. I mean, this is intense stuff. They talk about the Pleiadians, which my understanding is the Pleiadians are more of a good. Do you know anything about them?
Not a lot, just from what I've read, Jason, and supposed to be about seven, different groups out there. Never met one yet, but
Right.
love to. But in the backgrounds, a lot of these people are talking about multiple different ET entities, and we're just a lower life form. we're like the worms in the ground, and these guys are much more advanced, but. There's supposed to be some good entities that are supposed to be helping us out, helping out POTUS and the military stuff.
Yeah. Now he has a picture, which I found fascinating, which was a pyramid ship over the Kremlin in 2009, and the same thing over the Pentagon in 2018 in December, and it literally he's calling it the Orion Group, meaning this is quote unquote the satanic Saturnalic Luciferian group from the Orion star system, which is the all-seeing eye, top of the pyramid on the money.
Right. So that was the whole idea: is they're exchanging technology in exchange for feeding off the adrenochrome, and the elite are involved with that as well. And that was kind of cool when I saw that. I said to myself, that makes sense, because there's your pyramid floating on top, and there's 13 levels if you count the levels down below on that pyramid. So yeah, it was kind of neat to see that, right? So,
Yeah. Now here is one of my not favorite in a good way, but favorite in an educational way. So the Orion Group is the Satanic Force. We have a picture here of the Pentagon as well as the Air Force Memorial. And the Pentagon, obviously, we've gone over that. But then the the Air Force Memorial are three basically pieces of metal that are going up in the air, and they align to Orion's belt.
oh, that's cool.
Did
I
you know
didn't know that.
that?
No, I didn't know that. That's kind of neat.
Yeah. So the Washington Monument is considered Thuban or Tuban Draco, which I have not researched enough, so I'm not going to talk about that because I wouldn't be talking. I'd be talking ignorantly on it. That's the Washington Monument, and at the same time, the Air Force Memorial across the river aligns to Orion's belt. They set up D.C., London, and Rome, freaking lined up with Orion and those forces. It's crazy.
And you realize when you start to look at this, you realize just how vast this is and how connected they are and why they will use a software or elect their own pedophilic, leaders into place. So we have a right to be pissed off at our politicians. I remember when Trudeau got in. I'm Canadian, so for the Canadians who are listening, when Trudeau got in, I go, he's too young, too inexperienced to be a prime minister. And then it made sense. Okay, yeah, it was all in the fix, and they put him in place to really just pull that liberal sort of a globalist agenda. And now he's just selling out Canada. So hopefully the Canadians will wake up, strap on a pair, and drag his ass out of Parliament and hang him because he needs to go. And if you don't, and I love my country, Canada, and I love Canadians, brothers and sisters. If you don't, we tend to be a passive sort of people. He's going to sell out Canada to the CCP and to the globalists. So time to stand up, guys, and start getting rallies going. This is your future. This is for the kids.
Totally, and there's a basically a layout here: the Alpha Draconis Orion Group, the Reptilian Hierarchy, which one of Dr. Reed's favorites. David Icke has looked crazy for how long now, and he
Oh,
was
yeah.
freaking right the whole time.
Yeah, and he's got a great book. If you ever read The Prison Planet, he talked about this, and I didn't buy it either. Well, yeah, right. They're shapeshifters, and they're draconians. I didn't buy it at first, but then you start reading more into this. It really starts to make sense. I read one of the military guys went down into one of the dumbs, and he found this corridor, and there was like a restroom down, like how many hundreds of feet down. And he went into this restroom. He said the urinals were up like 5 or 6 feet. And then he realized that that urinal was for a very large being. It wasn't for a human, right? And he
Right.
said he got so scared he got out of there. So, you hear these stories and whether it's true or not, you just have to be open minded and be willing to say if it's possible, if it does happen, just be prepared for it. So
Oh yeah, dude. And then one of my favorites is um, where did so on the NASA logo, and I think you know this. The NASA logo, the red curvy little symbol is actually a reptilian tongue. Did you know that? Serpent's tongue?
yeah, it's supposed to be the serpent's tongue, right? It's
Yeah.
coming out
So
like
the red lines here for NASA, which by the way, NASA is like it's
there it is.
untouchable here in Florida. Like NASA is considered like the Mecca here in Florida.
Yeah.
Like untouchable. You can't talk bad about NASA. Like it, and I'm like, you don't even know what NASA is. There's an Orion star system, a Draco star system, a Palladian star system on the freaking NASA logo.
Yeah, and it's there, and you can see the Space Force logo too. And what's
Right.
interesting is when you look at Space Force and people go, "Oh yeah, we're going to have a Space Force." Just Google Solar Warden. Just go
Yeah.
and look up Solar Warden, and you realize they've had this for 25 years or longer, 30 years, and they've been flying all over the place. You can follow Mr. Crow BBB? I'm trying to remember his on YouTube, and he's got his camera always on the moon, and he'll actually show you the spacecraft that are flying around on the moon. It's kind of cool. But
Right.
this logo here on the Space Force logo, do you see which cluster of stars they removed, Jason?
Yeah, so if I go back up, here we go. They removed the Orion stars and they put
Yeah,
Sirius in place.
right. So that was symbolic, and they left the Palladian star cluster there as well. So we're
Yep.
going to get rid of the bad guys, symbolic, and keep the good guys.
Yeah, and it's and this is so the thing that I've had I have to research, and I have not done enough research on this. I'll dive into it when I have time on a weekend. Is the Draco system stayed in? Now I have read, but I have not studied enough that some Dracos are bad, but some can be good. I don't know for sure.
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
really caught up on that.
But I do know based on the Orion stuff that Orion is not good, and I guess we're glad that that's off. In the fact that, and also by the way, if Trump, I've read that if Trump was not elected, Space Force would not have been brought to light.
That's right. Because really, what this was, my understanding, the Space Force was originally the technology that was gleaned from the ETs, and that was a military-industrial complex through Area 51, China Lake, and S4, where they actually reverse engineered. Here's the craft; these guys reverse engineered. You heard Bob Lazar talk about it, and they've been flying around and creating their own technology. And that's the Black Project, where they siphon money through the Pentagon to the tune of trillions. We heard Rumsfeld talk about that. And that's just the Black projects they've been using to fund this over the years. And you can still Google the TR-3B and see the triangular spacecraft that they have. They've actually put it out there. Yeah, we have it. They've admitted it. And this is anti-gravity technology that they have. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah,
So, and what's happened is more or less it's been taken over by the real military, and now they have Space Force. So,
yeah,
once again, you're just watching a movie. This has already happened.
totally. And there's two more I want to show here before I finish this off. Is so Stonehenge was actually an adrenochrome harvest clock to worship the aliens from Orion, and there's actually mass graves around that. So apparently, when the light shines through between the heel stone, and this is the other crate. Let me bring this up because this goes back to Dr. Horace Drew. It also goes back to what Jason's been talking about is when this occurs is on winter solstice. Again, guess when the storm's supposed to be?
Yeah,
Winter
December
solstice.
2021. Yeah, winter solstice. That's right.
So that actually Stonehenge was apparently some sort of a worshiping type area for them, and it lines up exactly with those. And the last I want to bring up is the pyramids of Giza. So according to this research, they're actually water harvesting the Nile River for ionizing H2O to create H3O, which is also hydronium and a fuel. And so, and I read this one other place before I found it here was what were the pyramids for? And actually, it was if that triangle spaceship that they talk about is correct, that actually those were landing on the different pyramids around the world and they were being basically refueled from there or they were fueling up.
Yeah, it was interesting. I've read this a few different areas. They actually found pools of mercury underneath a lot of the pyramids, and they found this in a lot of the Mayan pyramids as well. And Bob Lazar talks about this, how they use mercury and they ionize it to create a plasma field for anti-gravity, which is kind of cool.
Right. No, totally. It's this stuff is it's so crazy, man. Like it's so crazy, but I'm going to continue. I'll tell you again. Um the more you study this stuff, which sometimes you got to walk away from it for a little bit cuz it's pretty intense, but
Yeah.
for me at least it started piecing the puzzles together. I don't know if it was the same for you.
Yeah, and I do like when you talk about the draconians. I'm going at yeah, right, and you hear the stories of the ETs and the Greys, and one time I thought, hey, maybe these guys are friendly, and then you hear they're just creeps that are just into adrenochrome, and you do have to walk away from this because there's this certain level of cognitive dissonance. It's just like your brain is already brainwashed, from the years of what you've learned on TV and in society, and you realize that's not reality. Reality is over here. And it takes you a while to sort of break through that matrix and start to really absorb and accept this stuff. And you do have to walk away from it. For those of you who are listening, don't spend hours and hours,
No.
on this stuff. Just jump on with Jason, listen to Jason. He's dialed in what's really happening. This one here, this is the other place I was talking about. That's over in Malaysia. Sorry, I might be on a different screen. There's a delay in the screen.
No,
But
you're okay. You're talking about the Malaysia one. Yeah.
The Malaysia one, which has the pyramids too, and they're lined up in the same lineage of the Iran lines. You want to just do your research. Go the Horse is a great one by it was Bill Cooper. Look up Bill Schneider. Look up Project Camelot. That's another great one. And just some of these whistleblowers are coming out and revealing, and there's older, newer videos. And then you get a lot of these guys who are on their deathbed. They're in their 70s and 80s, and they know nothing can happen to them. So they're just telling the truth as well and blowing the whistle.
No, totally. Project Camelot's great. Carrie Cassidy, very, very smart. And as we head out on this tonight, it's not a comfortable topic to look at. But what I have noticed, and I want to get your feedback before we close out tonight, is the more. It's not like we've read one source that says this, like, oh, one source and it aligns with what I want to believe, so let's go with it. No, this is something that I've read. I mean, handfuls of sources. I have handfuls of books behind me that all say, I'm going to say roughly 80, 90+% similar information, and there might be a little variance in like 10 to 15, which obviously anything you're going to have a little bit of variance, but there are so many sources out there that say the same stuff, and I'm assuming you've run across the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, you see it from the military, you see it from corporate, you see it from the public sector, and it's the message is the same. So it's not like somebody's making this up and that there's a difference, but the message is the same. And what I think we're going to see within the next probably, I'd say, 8 months is all of this is going to come to a closure. I think you're going to see disclosure on the new technologies as well. But what we're going to see in the next 6 weeks, coming up to December 21st, like you said, the solstice, all of this is going to be over. The election issue will be over. The exposure, the declassification, which Trump said, just declassify everything, is going to be over. Because going into January, he's got to be reelected as the president. And I'm sure it's a done deal. I really do believe that.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And before we end off, you're a little frozen, but we'll live with it for the end of it.
Right.
It's okay. It's all right. We have great audio, so I'm not worried about it, and we're finishing. But before we end up, I know this is a darker thing to look at tonight. It's a darker thing to read, and it's not exactly something you want to go to bed on. So I actually want to finish off with how we avoid having this occur, how we get out of this rut that's been going on for, I mean, it's not just decades and centuries. This is thousands of years going on back and forth. And, the one of the things that Dr. Reed and I, who are in chiropractic, we have a lot of our colleagues in our industry is based on energy. It's based on flows to the body. It's really based on positive thinking, healing, etc. And I'm going to let you speak on this, but what we have to do is we have to keep all our vibes up. Even with looking at this and gathering research, you then have to shift your mindset on, we as beings are we're very powerful. We're powerful souls. We can reverse the course of this by just putting our intentions, along with all the other Anons and Patriots, etc. out there, on let's create a better world where we can actually do away with this darkness, and we can actually create not only the new real republic, but create a better planet. What can you say to that?
I agree with you, Jason. I think everyone's got to, I love to follow CJ Truth. If you haven't followed him on Twitter, great guy. And, he's always saying, hey, pray at 7:41 in the morning or in the evening. And what he's saying is, let's elevate our collective consciousness one level higher. Whether you meditate, whether you pray, you want to stay positive in your heart and your mind. Don't get too absorbed in this stuff. But like you said, we are more powerful than we believe. So go to the Trump rallies. They had 1 million people up in Washington this weekend. Educate your friends. Whether a lot of people are willing to open up. They're just confused and they're ignorant. So just start to slowly open the doors for those people and start educating, bringing people into our world. At least have them become aware. Because when you look at that liberal mindset, they're stuck. They're in that mindset. It's hard to break. But those people who are looking and drifting towards you, just educate them and just do it out of a position of love and concern. You don't have to shove it down their throat, call them names. Just say, hey, listen, I just want to show you something. Keep an open mind. Do your research, and basically go into this knowing, I think, that things will be okay. I often listen to that little innate on the inside, Jason. I know you do. In chiropractic, we call that our inner voice. And I listen to that quite often, and I just go, no, things are going to be okay. There's no alarm bells going off. I think the military intelligence have everything planned out. He is a 5D chess player, so the game is over. You're just watching a bad movie, but just get on the right side and just start to go at it with a position of love and concern for a greater future, knowing things will turn out.
I 100% agree, man. I appreciate your time tonight. And always it's good. And getting into it was actually perfect timing because I stumbled upon the Ryan lines again this morning, and I'm like, oh, it was updated, which added a little bit more. And then many politicians today angered me, so I needed to get on the okay, let's get back to what's going on here. And the more that we view some of this stuff and we bring this into our consciousness of now we know, we've gotten knowledge on what it really is, that also can help manifest a better world, because their symbolism will be their downfall. The fact that we see it now, we expose it in our own mind.
We do. And it's no longer hidden symbolism. It's blatantly obvious, and the game. And you just have to be willing to, it's sort of like Lord of the Rings. You just gather the different armies and you're fighting the evil forces, and you go in there, full out, and willing to, if you have to, die. And I hate to say that, but if you don't, then what kind of future is your kids going to have? And that's the other thing. I mean, we're wearing kind of the same shirts. We didn't plan this, but it says "We the People." You have "We the People." We did not call each other folks. That wasn't planned, but you have to be willing to defend yourself. Get locked and loaded. Get prepared. Get a few months of water and food, and just understand that this is a war. It's a spiritual war. But you have to be willing to fight. You can no longer be a spectator. You have to be a player.
Definitely 100%, man. I appreciate your time tonight, and always good chatting with you. And we educated some people tonight, so well done.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jason. I've always got your six, buddy.
I appreciate it. Dr. Jason Dean, Dr. Mike Reed, Revolution Network. As always, do me a favor. Raise the consciousness level, raise the vibration level, go out tomorrow, serve and help your fellow man, and make it a better place. Have a wonderful night. Take care of yourself.